Elliot sat at the head of the table, his fork poised above a cooling piece of steak. The conversation around him hummed along, his sister describing a new coworker, his mother interrupting with a story she'd told before, his best friend Sam chuckling at all the right moments. It was normal. Too normal. For the first time, Elliot noticed something unsettling: the rhythm. His mother's laugh, his sister's sigh, Sam's quick nods of agreement. They seemed to fall into a pattern, like actors hitting marks in a play. And when his mother finished her anecdote, both his sister and Sam spoke at once. That's so funny. The words were perfectly in sync. Same tone, same timing. The hair on the back of Elliot's neck prickled. Elliot forced a smile, pretending not to notice. But the moment gnawed at him. He excused himself from the table, muttering something about needing more water. As he stepped into the kitchen, he paused, listening. The laughter and chatter continued behind him. But then, just for a moment, it dropped away. Silence, as if the three of them had been waiting. Then, simultaneously, his sister and Sam said, "Pass the bread." Elliot froze. The voices carried no warmth, no variation, an exact duplication. He peeked around the corner. His mother was handing them the basket, smiling too wide, like she had practiced the expression in a mirror and hadn't gotten it quite right. Something inside him twisted. They weren't just behaving oddly. They were echoing, copying, watching him. Elliot returned to the table, his heart thudding. He tried to focus on his food, cutting into the steak, but his eyes kept darting to the others. His sister reached for her glass of wine. For a moment, her hand trembled. No, not trembled, stuttered, as if someone had skipped a frame in a film reel. The glass blurred in his vision. Then her arm was suddenly steady, her smile unbroken. Sam leaned forward to say something, but his mouth moved a fraction of a second too late, the words lagging behind. "Been thinking we should all take a trip soon." Elliot swallowed hard. The glitch hadn't been his imagination. When his mother spoke again, her lips didn't move at all. "Elliot, dear, you're not eating. Is something wrong?" The words slid out perfectly clear, but her face remained frozen in that too wide smile. Elliot dropped his fork. It clattered against the plate, startling him more than it should have. All three of them turned toward him in unison, their heads tilting at the exact same angle, like marionettes tugged by one string. "I'm fine," he muttered, though his throat felt dry. They seemed to accept this, resuming their performance of eating and chatting. But Elliot started listening differently, not to what they said, but to what fell between the words. Every time Sam laughed, there was a strange hush before the sound began, like dead air. Every time his mother ended a sentence, the silence stretched too long, as though the world itself were holding its breath. Then he caught it. Under the chatter, faint but there, a low hum. A frequency not meant for human ears. Elliot pushed his chair back abruptly. "I need some air." Again, in unison, three voices answered without hesitation. "Of course." Elliot stepped out onto the porch, gulping the night air. The cool wind cut through his panic, but the house behind him glowed too warmly, too falsely, like a set piece. He stared at the living room window. Inside, his family and Sam sat perfectly still. Not talking, not moving, just waiting. The hum was louder out here, vibrating in the wooden planks beneath his feet. Then, his sister turned her head toward the window. Slowly, deliberately, her eyes locked on him through the glass. The others followed, one by one, their faces pressing into that same unnatural smile. Elliot stumbled back from the porch. His voice cracked as he whispered to himself. "They weren't waiting for me to leave. They're waiting for me to come back." Elliot fumbled for his phone, desperate for something normal. He scrolled to his coworker Mark, someone outside the circle, someone safe, and hit dial. The ringtone buzzed in his ear. Once, twice, 3 times. Then a click. But it wasn't Mark's voice. It was his mother's. "Elliot, dear, you should come back inside." His stomach dropped. He yanked the phone away from his ear. The screen still displayed Mark, calling. From inside the house, he heard it again. 3 voices, perfectly overlapped. "Come back inside." The hum rose like static, rattling the porch light. Elliot hung up, his hands shaking. He realized something horrifying. There was no one else to call. Elliot bolted down the driveway, his shoes slapping against the pavement. The night was unnervingly still. No crickets, no passing cars, no distant dogs. Only that faint hum, following him like a shadow. Streetlights lined the block, each casting the same pale cone of light. But as he ran beneath them, he noticed something wrong. In every lit window, people sat at tables, faces turned toward the glass, watching. A man across the street raised his hand in a stiff wave. A woman mirrored the gesture from another house at the exact same moment. Elliot's breath hitched. It wasn't just his family. The entire neighborhood was waiting. Elliot ducked into the shadows between two houses, crouching low. His pulse throbbed in his ears. Across the street, a family emerged from their front door. A father, mother, two children. They stepped onto the lawn and began walking in perfect synchronization, each movement mirrored, arms swinging, legs bending, even the tilt of their heads. The children spoke first. Together. "Nice night, isn't it?" Then the parents repeated it. "Nice night, isn't it?" The words layered, copied, folded back on themselves like a broken recording. Elliot pressed himself against the wall, fighting the urge to scream. The hum thickened in the air, vibrating in his teeth. He realized it wasn't outside, it was inside them. Inside everything. Elliot slipped deeper between the houses, emerging onto a darker side street. He thought he was alone until a figure appeared at the corner, an old man in a long coat, hunched and slow. Relief surged through Elliot. Someone normal. Someone human. "Hey," he called, his voice raw. "Please, you have to help me." The man stopped. His head turned. Not naturally, but in a sharp, mechanical pivot, as if his neck were a hinge. When he spoke, his voice was calm, almost kind. "You shouldn't be out here." Behind his words, Elliot could hear it. The same hum, faint but unmistakable. Then the old man's jaw twitched, shuddered, and split into a smile that was too wide, too even. "They'll be worried about you." Elliot staggered back, nearly tripping over the curb. "What are you?" he rasped. The old man tilted his head, the movement jerky, delayed. His face seemed to flicker. For a split second, Elliot saw something beneath it, like a mask slipping. A flash of slick gray skin. A lidless black eye. Then it was gone. The man looked human again, his expression placid. "You're tired. You're confused." Elliot shook his head violently. No, I saw." The man stepped forward, lifting one hand as if to calm him. The gesture was smooth, rehearsed, almost programmed. Elliot bolted past him, running blind into the darkness, certain now of one thing. The masks were thin, and they were slipping. Elliot sprinted until his lungs burned. At the end of the block, under a flickering street lamp, stood an old phone booth, graffitied, half-forgotten, but real, tangible. He stumbled inside and slammed the door shut. For a moment, the glass walls felt like protection, a barrier against the silent houses staring at him. He grabbed the receiver, dropped coins into the slot, and dialed 911 with shaking fingers. The line clicked. "Emergency services," a voice said. Relief flooded him. "Thank God. Listen, I need help." "They're not. My family, my neighbors, they're not." The voice interrupted, flat and measured. "We know where you are, Elliot. Please stay inside the booth. We are sending help." The hum surged through the receiver, deafening now. And then, faintly, under the static, he heard three voices in perfect unison. "Come back inside." Elliot dropped the receiver as if it had burned him. It swung on its cord, thumping softly against the glass. He pressed his back against the booth, fighting the urge to collapse. His reflection stared back at him in the glass. Wild eyes, sweat on his brow, chest heaving. But then, something shifted. In the reflection, his mouth curved upward. A smile. He wasn't smiling. His reflection lifted its hand against the glass, palm flat, pressing toward him. Elliot's real hand remained frozen at his side. The reflection's lips moved. No sound came out. Then, all at once, the glass around the booth hummed, vibrating like it might shatter. Elliot screamed and bolted out into the night, abandoning his mirrored twin behind. Elliot tore down the street, but the night seemed endless, repeating. The same mailbox, the same dark SUV parked at the curb, the same sagging porch light blinking in time with the hum. He wasn't escaping. He was circling. Behind him, footsteps echoed. Not hurried, not ragged like his own, but steady, perfectly measured. He risked a glance back. Three figures followed in the glow of the street lamp. His mother, his sister, and Sam. Their faces calm, smiling. They didn't run. They didn't need to. When Elliot turned the next corner, another 3 figures waited. Identical. His chest locked with panic. The world wasn't just filled with them. It was closing in. Elliot stumbled into a cul-de-sac, realizing too late it was a dead end. Houses loomed around him, their windows glowing with that same false warmth. The hum thickened, seeping out of the walls, the pavement, even the air. One by one, doors opened. Figures poured out. Neighbors, co-workers, even strangers he thought he'd only passed on the street. All of them smiling, all of them moving with that eerie, practiced rhythm. They spread out around him, a tightening circle. His sister's voice rose above the others, calm and clear. "You don't have to be afraid, Elliot." Sam echoed her, word for word. "You don't have to be afraid, Elliot." Then his mother, lips unmoving, voice sliding from nowhere and everywhere at once. "You were never alone. You were never human." Elliot's knees nearly buckled. No, that's not true." His own voice cracked in the night. "I am human. I've always been." The circle tightened, their smiles stretching wider. "You've always been with us," Sam said, stepping forward. "You've always been with us," his sister repeated. "You've always been with us," his mother whispered without moving her lips. Their words pressed against him like invisible hands, crushing, suffocating. Elliot clutched his head, memories flooding in jagged fragments. His father's funeral, his first kiss, his high school graduation. Except details blurred. Faces never quite distinct. Voices always the same. Like actors recycling the same roles. "What am I?" Elliot gasped. The hum swelled, an answer rising within it, though he wasn't sure he wanted to hear. The air trembled with the hum, vibrating through Elliot's bones. His sister stepped closer, her eyes glinting. "Think, Elliot. Your first memory. Where does it begin?" He opened his mouth, but nothing came. His mind reached for childhood, for the warmth of his mother's arms, the scent of pancakes on a Saturday morning, but the images dissolved. Static. Loops. Every memory began in the middle. No beginnings, only scenes. Sam's voice slid in smoothly. "You were never born. You were placed." The crowd leaned in, faces shining in the streetlight, smiles identical. "Placed where?" Elliot shouted, though dread already gnawed at the answer. The circle whispered together, a single chorus. "Here." Elliot's skin prickled as though something beneath it wanted out. He clawed at his sleeve, pulling it up to the elbow. There, on the inside of his forearm, was a faint, geometric scar. A circle intersected by jagged lines, glowing ever so slightly in the dark. His stomach lurched. He had never noticed it before. Never. The crowd murmured as one, voices overlapping in perfect harmony. "Do you see now?" His mother, if she was his mother, extended her arm. The same mark pulsed beneath her skin. Then his sister's. Then Sam's. Every figure in the circle bared their arms, and every mark glowed the same dull light. Elliot staggered back, but there was nowhere to go. The circle closed, humming louder. His own mark throbbed in sync with theirs. The glow beneath Elliot's skin pulsed faster, keeping time with the rising hum. His vision blurred, edges of the world flickering like a faulty screen. "No, this isn't me," he muttered, gripping his arm as if he could tear the mark out. Sam stepped forward, his smile soft but unyielding. "It has always been you. You've just been asleep." The crowd lifted their hands in unison. The marks on their arms shone brighter, beams of pale light converging on Elliot. The hum became a frequency, a signal, pressing into his skull, threading through his thoughts. For an instant, Elliot felt his resistance crumble. Something inside him stirred, something vast, ancient, waiting. His own voice slipped out, but it wasn't his. "We are awake." He clapped his hands over his mouth, horrified. Elliot fell to his knees, clutching his head. The world around him rippled, houses bending like reflections on water. The circle closed tighter. Their voices layered, impossible to separate, filling the night. "Do not resist. You are one of us." "No," Elliot screamed, but the sound was thin, feeble against the tidal wave of their chorus. His mark seared like fire. Images burst into his mind. Towers of black stone rising under alien skies. Oceans of stars stretching endlessly. A great vessel drifting in silence. He wasn't seeing them. He was remembering. The ground shook. Streetlights flickered out. The night itself seemed to buckle. And Elliot realized, It wasn't the world collapsing. It was him. Elliot's body trembled as if strings beneath his skin had been pulled taut. His mouth opened on its own. A voice poured out, deep, resonant, and not his own. "We have waited long enough." The crowd fell silent, bowing their heads in perfect unison. Their smiles vanished, replaced by blank reverence. Inside his skull, Elliot felt it, a second consciousness unfurling, stretching, testing the edges of his mind like a creature waking from hibernation. He tried to fight, clawing against it, but the voice coiled tighter. "You are not Elliot." Elliot was the mask. His vision flickered, snapshots of his life. Dinners, conversations, birthdays, all looping fragments, scripts replayed endlessly. Not memories, simulations. And now the mask was cracking. The truth slammed into Elliot like a physical blow. He staggered upright, eyes wide, as the voice inside him whispered, "You were the first, the seed, the sleeper placed among them." The crowd raised their glowing arms, chanting softly, "Awaken, awaken, awaken." Elliot's mark blazed, flooding his veins with light. He looked down, his skin shimmered, briefly transparent, revealing machinery, circuitry, something alive but not human. His knees buckled. "No, I felt human. I loved, I laughed, I—" His mother's face softened. "You felt what we programmed you to feel. That was your dream." Sam's voice followed, calm and final. "This is your waking." Elliot's scream caught in his throat as his body convulsed. The light beneath his skin burst outward in jagged cracks, illuminating the circle of figures. They didn't move. They only watched, silent, reverent. Inside, the voice pressed harder, unraveling his thoughts like threads. "You are the key, the bridge. Through you we cross." The world around him distorted further. The houses wavered. The streetlights dissolved into beams of static. He saw through it all now. The neighborhood was nothing but scaffolding, a stage designed to cradle him until this moment. He collapsed forward onto his hands, gasping. His reflection stared back at him in a puddle. Only it wasn't his reflection anymore. Black eyes, metallic skin. The hum became words, rising from every throat around him. "Welcome home." Elliot staggered to his feet, light bleeding from the cracks in his skin. The circle parted, and behind them the illusion of the cul-de-sac peeled away like torn wallpaper. Beyond it stretched a vast chamber, metallic walls pulsing with veins of blue light. The night sky he thought he'd known flickered out, revealing a dome, a ceiling painted with stars. He was never outside. He was inside something colossal. The crowd stepped back, bowing. His family raised their faces to him, eyes shining with reverence. "You are the vessel," they said as one. "You are the door." Elliot stumbled backward, shaking his head violently. "I'm not. I can't." But deep within, the other voice purred with satisfaction. "You already have." The floor beneath Elliot's feet split open, lines of light racing outward in intricate patterns. The chamber shuddered, alive, responding to him. His mark burned so brightly now it was hard to look at. He clutched his arm, but the light surged through his chest, his throat, his eyes. Around him, the figures dropped to their knees, chanting, "Through him, through him, through him." Elliot's vision tore wide. He saw beyond the chamber, beyond the walls. He saw the black void of space, filled with titanic shapes shifting in the dark, pressing close, waiting. The voice inside him swelled until it was all he could hear. "Open." And Elliot felt his body comply, every cell splitting into a gate. The chamber walls dissolved into raw stars. Something vast and ancient began to push through. Elliot's body blazed like a beacon, every nerve lit with alien fire. The chamber filled with shapes sliding in from the dark, towering figures of black stone and shifting light, their presence crushing and endless. The kneeling crowd lifted their heads, smiling. It is done. The door is open. But then, silence. The figures halted at the threshold, rippling, hesitant. A pulse of thought spread through Elliot's mind, not from them, but from him. Something deeper, hidden. The alien voice inside him faltered. "What is this? What have you?" Elliot's mouth stretched into a smile, his own this time. "You built me as a vessel, but you left me too much humanity." The light flared brighter, burning the crowd where they stood. Screams echoed as their masks collapsed into writhing gray flesh. The towering beings shrieked as the gateway inverted, folding in on itself. One by one, they were dragged back into the void. Elliot stood alone in the dying chamber, smoke rising from the scorched remains around him. His skin flickered between alien and human, the mark fading to ash. He whispered into the silence, almost laughing. Maybe I was never human, but I'm not yours either. And the chamber collapsed into darkness.